Hello everyone, I am Gebatron, and in this video we're going to celebrate the channel breaking the 6,000 subscriber mark by answering your questions and giving away some goodies.
What'd he say his name was?
Gebatron. Alright, so first things first, thank you all so much for subscribing and following Gebatron Gaming. Maybe 6,000 subscribers doesn't seem like a lot, but it's worth celebrating in my book. Thank you all for the support. We did this once before when the channel broke the 2,000 subscriber mark, and that was a lot of fun, so we're doing it again. You can watch that video at the top right if you like. We had 10 questions for that one, and we have 24 in this one. And here's to hoping we can do another one someday if we ever get to, I don't know, 10,000 subscribers? Who knows? Just one more note on the Steam Key giveaways. This giveaway has nothing to do with YouTube or its affiliates. The Hell Let Loose and Skull Bucket DLCs were all provided by Team 17, while the Beach Invasion 1944 keys were provided by AI x 2 Games. All winners were chosen at random, and we'll talk more about how to collect your winnings at the end of the video. Alright, first question is from channel member finbar. Channel members get priority for things like comment replies and things like this. Members also get early access to new videos, as well as more direct influence over the direction of the channel, such as if I'm making multiple videos, members get to pick which order those get released in. Now I know I don't put out weekly videos or anything like that, so I have made membership as cheap as possible at only 99 cents per month. If you are interested in membership, then click the join button below or ask any questions you have in the comments. Okay, anyway, Finbar asks, have you ever gotten tired or bored of Hell Let Loose? I hit 700 hours and I'm feeling I don't get the joy I used to while playing. Good question, and I actually plan on making a video about this topic at some point, covering ways you can kind of spice the game back up for yourself. But to answer your question, I wouldn't say I've ever gotten tired or bored of Hell Let Loose, but I have gotten disinterested. I think it's pretty human to need to take breaks from things that you were spending great deals of time and effort on, even if you really enjoy those things. And I'm sure, like most people, I enjoy multiple video games and sometimes just want to change the scenery. I know with games like Hell Let Loose, the first-person shooters and stuff like that, especially competitive online ones, that there's often this push and this pressure to kind of compare yourself to other players who have a ton of hours in the game. And I think this can lead players to maybe play past the point of having fun, to try and just get hours and hours, and it's almost like a rite of passage of some kind or something like that. This can lead to burnout, and I don't necessarily think that's healthy. I think you should just be playing the game enough to continue to have fun, and if you find yourself becoming bored or disinterested, take a break, or maybe play the game in a different way than you have been. For instance, if you find yourself playing a lot of leadership roles and maybe you're burned out on that, maybe you try a different role, or a role that maybe you haven't played in a long time. You can also try to do more specialized things, such as running a squad that only focuses on anti-tank duties, or maybe a squad that just focuses on logistics, like I did in the video at the top right. Or maybe you just need to take a break, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I've definitely taken breaks from Hell Let Loose, not because I disliked the game or was disappointed in anything, but just because I felt like doing some other things. Thanks for the question and for supporting the channel with your membership. Just a Veteran asks, how would you feel about a more War Thunder approach to tanking? Actual modeled armor and a post-death screen showing who killed you with what weapon, etc. Just some more info after you die instead of staring at a killed in action message. Alright, I'll answer the second part of your question first. If they included the name of the player who killed you and what weapon they used to kill you, I think that would be okay. As a matter of fact, that might even help newer players learn the different weapon sounds. So I don't think I would oppose to a, killed in action by Gebatron with a G43. I don't think I would be opposed to that. What I would really be opposed to is a kill cam. A kill cam would give more information, such as the enemy's specific location, and it would let you know what role they are too, based on their uniform or whatever, which would help the player with target prioritization. I think that information should be gathered from the battlefield itself and not from a death screen or a kill cam. Keep in mind that part of the reason for that 10-second death screen is to kind of disorient the player. So I'll say it's not something that I want, but I don't think I'd be opposed to it. Now on to armor. I have always been disappointed in how armor plays in Hell Let Loose. Believe it or not, I thought armor actually played better before Black Matter overhauled it in Update 9 in March of 2021. It's just too simple for me. You mentioned War Thunder, and I have played a fair amount of War Thunder, as you can see in the background here. I do like how War Thunder works. However, one of the reasons it works well is because you have only one player controlling the whole tank. Now, you do have crew members in that tank, but it's still only controlled by you as a single player. I think if this system was copied by Hell Let Loose, you'd have a lot of tank members not having a lot of fun, as one or more of them would be killed in every engagement. It would make it just so much more difficult to tank, and so much more time would be spent running from garrison to tank, and then if you were to get killed on that run, boy, it would just be very frustrating because, you want to play in the tank. So that's how I feel about War Thunder's system as far as crew members are concerned. However, I think that the way War Thunder handles penetration and modules is very good and something that could be done for Hell Let Loose. Now, having said that, I think the premier armor system is the one found in Postscriptum. The footage in the background is from Postscriptum's armor overhaul showcase, and I think you all should watch that as it's fantastic. And while it's probably too in-depth for Hell Let Loose, there are many things here that could translate well to Hell Let Loose. So what are some of the things I like about it? You can't kill the crew in the tank, but you can injure them. At least that's how it worked at the time of the showcase. The purist in me, of course, wants you to be able to kill crew members by being, accurate with your shots. However, I think that's detrimental to gameplay and the fun factor, and I think Postscriptum handles this very well. You still have to be aware of your health, and you're not invulnerable, but you still have to manage it. I do think, however, you should be able to bandage while still in the armor. The Postscriptum system has many more components or modules to the tank, probably too many for Hell Let Loose, but Hell Let Loose could stand, a couple more modules other than just tracks, engine, and turret. Another thing I like about their system is that you have to get into the proper hatches, meaning that you can't just walk up to the tank and hold F. The driver has to get into the driver hatch. The commander has to get into the commander hatch, etc. They handle repairing in a very similar way. So like if your tracks are damaged, then you have to repair the tracks. If your engine is damaged, you have to physically go to the compartment, the engine compartment, and fix that area. You can't just run to the safe side of the tank and torch wherever and, fix a problem that's in a different place on the tank. One of my favorite things about their system is that the extra things like the spare track on the tanks and like the logs on the sides of the tanks, they aren't just decoration. They have a physical model in the game and they can affect the projectiles. And the last thing I'll talk about is that if a projectile hits a tank and does not penetrate and does not ricochet, it will break apart, and the shrapnel from that break could kill or injure nearby infantry. Same with ricochets. It's not just a sound. The projectile still physically exists on the battlefield and can impact with other objects. I think adding some of these elements to Hell Let Loose's armor system would go a long way to bringing some more interesting elements to tanking, bringing some more nuance to it, and to help reinforce that the battlefield is a very dangerous place. It's really too bad that there aren't very many players playing Postscriptum right now, because a lot of things about that game are very, very good. If you are at all interested in armor systems in video games, I highly recommend you check out that video at the top right. I'll put it in the description as well, but yeah, I guarantee you that that system will be used or copied in some way in future video games. Thanks for the interesting question. Since we're talking about Postscriptum, let's answer the questions of tedvanosch and Dismal. They ask, a lot of people I casually play with in Hell Let Loose say they actually prefer Squad. I've never tried it myself. What's your opinion on Squad? And what are your thoughts on Squad? So the reason Squad relates to Postscriptum is because Postscriptum started off as a Squad mod before it became its own game. And before I answer these questions, I'd just like to do a shout out to my Steam friend Garbanzo, who actually gifted me Squad. Thanks a lot, man. I think Squad is fantastic. As a matter of fact, before Hell Let Loose's Update 14, I was working on a video about Squad. It was just going to be some highlights that I walked people through and talked about the experiences you can have while playing Squad, and then I was going to recommend it to people, to give it a shot for themselves. The only issue I ever really had while playing Squad was that I thought the sprint speed was too fast and you could sprint for too long. Then I also thought that you had too much stamina and it refilled too fast. But Squad is just, they're working on an update where they did some overhauling to the infantry, and one of the things they change is the sprint speed. They slowed it down. I don't know how stamina was affected, but it seems like those issues I had were probably fixed. I don't know for sure, as I haven't played Squad in a few weeks, but the only reason I don't cover it in depth on the channel is because I just kind of casually play that game, whereas Hell Let Loose, I basically study it. Another reason is just because I'm not as interested in the modern warfare stuff as I am in the historical stuff. I consider myself kind of a, amateur World War II historian. I read about it. I consume a lot of media about it. So I feel much more comfortable talking about the World War II weapons and tactics and how they fit into a squad and how they should behave in a video game. In contrast, I know very little or even next to nothing about the differences in modern assault rifles and how they should fit into a squad. I know very little about modern armor and the different, helicopter models and all that kind of stuff. But Squad is an awesome game. I recommend it to anybody who's interested in it at all. And with that recent update, maybe I'll have to play it a little more and maybe make some more videos on it on the channel. Plus, I will definitely finish that video I was making. So you're going to see a Squad video here sometime in the near future. But yes, Squad is a fantastic game. This next one, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I'm going to pronounce it Seth 61. I hope I got that right, man. Seth 61 doesn't ask a question per se, but says they'd like to see some 6 Days in Fallujah and Burning Lands gameplay. 6 Days in Fallujah looks really good, and I would like to play it, but once again, it's more of a modern warfare type thing, so I am less interested in it, and I don't have a lot of time, so I don't know if I'll be picking that game up. It very well may be worth the $40 it's going for right now, but it's not worth $40 to me, as I just don't have enough time to play it. On the other hand, Burning Lands is something I would be more interested in, as that's a little more historical. I do some reading about the Vietnam War, and I think that game will have more in common with something like Hell Let Loose as far as game systems go. So I don't know if I'll get into 6 Days in Fallujah, but there is a good chance that I will at least make a first impressions video about Burning Lands when that comes out. But who knows? Like I said, 6 Days looks really, really good. Thanks for joining the conversation. pnklysmooth asks, what new/upcoming games can we expect to see on your channel for the continuation of 2023? So I basically play two types of games, and I don't mean two genres of games, I mean two production styles. I play the games that I, currently show on the channel, like Hell Let Loose, which was in early access when I started covering it. Games like Marauders, which I started covering during alpha and beta, and is currently in early access. Sons of the Forest, which is in early access. Forgotten but Unbroken, which is not even in early access. So indie games like that are up and coming. I also play bigger titles like Red Dead Redemption 2, Jedi Fallen Order, and, AAA games, blockbusters, things like that. The problem with these AAA and larger releases is that I never buy them right away. I never pre-order those types of games, and I usually even wait a full year to buy them. That way, I get them on sale and they are patched and all fixed up. This saves me money, and I get a product that actually works. So now you're probably saying, well, early access titles are buggy and they don't work either. That's correct, but the early access titles and these indie developers, they take direction from their communities as far as what to prioritize, bug fixes and things like that. Not to mention I get to support smaller production companies. So the smaller titles, I can feel like I'm a part of the process in some way. All that to say that you're not going to see games like Jedi Survivor. You're not going to see Starfield when that comes out. That's just not how I engage with those big blockbuster games. You might see games like Project Z in the future, depending on when that releases. I'd like to cover Manor Lords a little bit, even if it's just, a first impressions video. I've been following Road to Vostok. Hopefully you see more Forgotten but Unbroken. There's a game called Dead Matter coming out that I'm interested in. You're going to see coverage on Beach Invasion 1945 Pacific, and maybe even a little Resolve. You'll also get coverage on some other things like I've already covered, like Sons of the Forest and Marauders. So I mean, you know, that's kind of the newer stuff, the up-and-coming stuff that I'd like to cover. I'd also like to make some videos about some other games I enjoy that are already out. Like I've been wanting to make a couple Hearts of Iron 4 videos for forever. I'd like to do a video essay about Red Dead Redemption 2, you know, focusing on a specific part of the game that really changed how I played it. I've also always kind of wanted to do some of my favorite World War II games, you know, that I've played throughout my life, and kind of make a video on each one of those, or at least, you know, list them out. So I know you didn't ask about older games or anything like that, but that's kind of a look at some of the stuff I'd like to cover in the future of the channel. But if there's anything specific you'd like me to cover that you think I would do a great job covering, let me know and I'll look into it. Thank you very much for your question and for your support. PotDylan asks, what do you think about certain areas of maps like Carentan being inaccessible? If you find an issue with it, what changes would you like to see in the future? This is a great question, so I'll let myself answer it with a clip from my Hell Let Loose Update 7 review. My second issue is that I felt that there weren't enough open buildings. I'll admit that there are more open buildings than in any other current map with urban elements, but I guess I was just expecting a little more. The MG role is my favorite role, and I was a little disappointed in the lack of buildings with vantage points over things like major road intersections. I'm sure that the more open buildings they have, the more it would impact performance, but I would like to see them maybe add a few more buildings in the future. So that's what I thought about it then, and I still think that now. Couple that with the fact that many of the windows you can get to are terrible for mounting an MG on because of the, you know, the window cross sections that get in your way. So I do want to see more open buildings in areas, and that will help let us decide what's strategic, you know. Now, having said that, there are problems that can arise when too many buildings are open, and Postscriptum is a good example of this. In that game, the vast majority of buildings are open, and sometimes it can feel like you're in a maze more than you're on a battlefield. So long story short, a game like Hell Let Loose does a really good job of funneling players into certain areas, but that also takes away, you know, from some of the players' choice. On the other hand, a game like Postscriptum allows players too much choice and does not funnel enough action in some cases. So there is a delicate balance to find there, but I do believe that Hell Let Loose has too few buildings open. And with a few more open buildings should come, you know, a few more open backyards and courtyards too. Thanks for the question. Time for a fun one. enricotrevelino asks, do you have any pets? If so, what are they? Yes, I have a cat. We adopted him when he was a kitten. He is about 4 years old, and his full name is Lord Leonard Gebbington. We had some fun with the name on that one, but he's named after the late great Leonard Nimoy, who of course played Spock in Star Trek, but the performance I mostly remember him for is for, as the voice of Galvatron from the animated Transformers movie. Also a little insight as to the origin of my own name there. Anyway, the cat and I are pretty inseparable, and I'm glad we adopted him. How about you? You got any pets? Thanks for the question. Next question is from mstrstrawxx, who I believe participated in the first AMA, so thanks for sticking with me through all this time. They ask, what got you into doing YouTube, and why did you choose to cover Hell Let Loose to start out? So, I used to travel a lot for work. On the short end, I'd be in the car for 6 hours a week, or anywhere up to 10 hours depending on where we were working. At the time, I was mostly playing Hearts of Iron 4, as well as other random games. If you're not familiar with Hearts of Iron, it's a large, grand strategy game set during World War II that has many very complex systems. It's probably my favorite game series of all time. So what I was doing was making a YouTube playlist before I would take off on my trip, of different guides and tips videos, and how this works and how that works videos, and I would listen to them on my trips. I found the information in these videos to be extremely valuable, and it really helped me to understand and therefore enjoy the games that I was spending time playing. Over time, the videos for Hearts of Iron went from being very helpful and informative videos to being videos that were very exploitative. Like, here is a trick you can do, you know, to make this unrealistic thing happen by tricking the game. And it bothered me because I thought there was a lot left on the table by these content creators. Things like how to carry out an operation and then recover from that operation, or how to trickle down your good equipment and phase out your old equipment, or, you know, some unique ways to use paratroopers. So I saw some gaps there, and that's when I first got the idea that maybe I could make video game content and show people how I played, how I enjoyed things, and maybe contribute in that way. The problem that I had, and why I didn't start making the actual videos, was because Hearts of Iron is very complex. It would have been hard to get the specific scenarios I wanted. I didn't know anything about making videos. I didn't know anything about editing videos, and it all just seemed too complicated and hard at the time. You guys, at the time, I didn't even know how to record video game footage. So a couple of years go by, and I still have the idea in the back of my head that, you know, I still would like to make video game content because I really enjoy video games, and I found out about Hell Let Loose. I started playing Hell Let Loose when it was still in beta, so by the time the game came out into early access and some time had passed, I had been around long enough already and had been following the dev briefs and stuff that I knew quite a bit about the game that a lot of other players didn't. And I was finding myself explaining how the game works to newer players in the game every match. But I also still didn't have all the answers. So the singular incident that made me actually start making these videos was we were in a match on Purple Heart Lane, and somebody asked in proximity chat, how many anti-tank mines can you set down at a time? Now I had an idea, but I did not know the answer for sure, so I kept my mouth shut, you know, as to not give out misinformation. But so many other people piped up. There were people saying that you can only lay one mine down at a time, and there were people saying you can only have two down at a time. Then there, you know, the other end of the spectrum, there were people saying that you can place as many as you want. You could cover the entire battlefield with your mines, and that's how it worked. And of course, all of those answers were wrong. I knew they were wrong, but I did not know what the right answer was at the time. It was at that moment that I decided I was going to make reference material for Hell Let Loose so I can give the right answers to these questions in-game, and so I can direct other people to a primary source so they can see the tests for themselves and we can spread the word together. So I started watching videos on how to record footage and how to upload videos onto YouTube. I created a profile for Gebatron Gaming just to keep it separate from my personal account. I hopped on the official Discord and asked for somebody to help me start a squad just to be AFK so I could go through the roles and test certain things out and get the answers I needed. Huge shout out to Tentacles for being the one who stepped up to help a guy he'd never even spoken to before. Super awesome of you. Thanks a lot, Tentacles. So then I started making videos, you know, and of course they were terrible. They were the first videos I ever made. They weren't edited, they weren't scripted. I said a lot of and you know, like the information was really good, but the production quality was bad, and the layout was bad, and the art was bad. It was all pretty bad, and I needed to do a lot of growing to become a better content creator, and I, of course, still do. But I got kind of lucky, as Hell Let Loose really needed someone to be doing that at the time. So even though the videos were pretty bad, there was such a need for it that I started getting subscribers, I started getting views, and here we are now. So that's how that all started, and I'm really glad it did, because now I get to help people enjoy their games, just like other people helped me in the past to enjoy my games, and I get to answer great questions like this. So thank you very much for the question, mstrstrawxx. Pyrrhrick asks, I'd be interested to hear what, outside of Team 17's roadmap, you'd like to see changed in Hell Let Loose. Anything from a realistic expectation to a pipe dream. AJMims asks a similar question with, if you became Hell Let Loose dictator for the rest of the year with full control of the game and development, what changes would you implement? There are so many things I'd like to change or tweak a bit, and I've made a few videos covering those changes in more depth, so check those out after this if you want. You know, we talked about armor earlier, and I think that needs to change. But the problem with that is it would take a lot of work and it would really only affect a small portion of the player base. Even if you get 3 full tank crews, that's still only 18% of your team that's noticing these differences. That's kind of what happened after Postscriptum's update. They took, almost a full year to work on only the armor update, and because it took so much work and so much time, the rest of the game really suffered, and then the player base was really upset. So while the update itself is fantastic, it just took away from so much of the resources that could have or should have maybe been going into other parts of the game that more players would have been affected by. But if I am dictator, then we'd definitely do that anyway. Once we had that armor rework under our belt, I think we could start introducing more varied armored vehicles, more variants of those vehicles, and eventually tank destroyers. I would also change player movement, and I'm not talking about sprint speed. I would change that too. But what I'm talking about is like from standing to crouch, from crouch to prone, from standing to prone, and back. That would all move just a touch slower than it does now, just be a little more deliberate, and the same goes with reloads. Reloads would just take a little bit longer. I would also change how ammo works. Ammo would be persistent, so if you have 10 magazines and you empty 5 of those magazines, and you die, when you respawn, you would still only have 5 full magazines. You would have to then rearm at an ammo box or something to get your full 10 magazines back. I think those changes would help slow the game pace down in a way that would require more teamwork in order to be successful. That's where I would start. I would also make changes to how nodes and resources work, and I went into detail on all that in the video at the top right. I would give the MG class something to build, whether it's just a simple sandbag or a heavy MG nest or something. And just to be a little more specific about the Team 17 roadmap, something outside of that roadmap that I would add would be a campaign mode of some kind. I know Black Matter had this on their last couple roadmaps, and we didn't get much info on how it was supposed to work, but some sort of resource drain over time, equipment, vehicle drain over time, something like that, where the Americans would get more resources as they pushed in, and the Germans would get less as they got pushed back, and vice versa. I think something like that would be really cool, and I'd like to work on that. But I'm interested to hear from you guys. What would your answer to your own questions be? Thank you very much. Knowledge of Barbarossa asks, do you think that Hell Let Loose is currently going in the wrong direction / getting worse? Also, how do you usually break the ice in the comm chats? I try bad jokes or questions, however, many people just stay silent, which greatly reduces the overall fun. Good question, and I'm pretty sure you participated in the first AMA too, so thanks for all the support. Hell Let Loose started deviating from its very original vision already starting right after alpha testing, and it has evolved ever since due to a variety of factors. Black Matter changed direction over time due to their capabilities and, what the market was doing around them, and a lot of their limitations and changes were in an attempt to make the game more accessible to a larger audience. After all, if, the only people that ever play your game are the Kickstarters and pre-orders, then the game is not going to go very far. At the end of the day, Black Matter was a business with employees and they needed to make money too. Here is an example. In Alpha, the whole map was playable. That means these grayed out areas had strong points. There were also more than one strong point active at a time, similar to how offensive used to work before that only changed to 1 point per zone. Black Matter changed this for beta and grayed these areas out in an effort to funnel more players into larger and more chaotic conflicts. Can you imagine if Team 17 were to do the same thing now? Just cut off 40% of the map and tell us they want a more exciting game? How much backlash they would receive? And after all, that is kind of the goal with their new game mode anyway, a smaller map to increase the chaos and intensity of the conflict. They really aren't doing anything different that Black Matter didn't already do before them. So to answer your question more directly, I don't think Hell Let Loose is going in the wrong direction, but Hell Let Loose has been going in a different direction than I would have chosen for the game for years now. Does that mean that the game is getting worse? No, I think that just means that the game is evolving and changing over time. And ultimately, the answer to your question is very subjective. You might have a completely different idea of what the game was, of what the game is doing now, and how that affects, how you feel about it. I know there are plenty of people who don't have an hour and a half to sit down and play a video game, but they do have a half hour to sit down and play a video game. And those people might buy Hell Let Loose in the future, or if they've already bought Hell Let Loose, it might entice them to pick it back up and start playing again. There are plenty of players excited for the new game mode. For the rest of us, we still have warfare and offensive mode to play. So while I think that Hell Let Loose has gone in a direction that has made it more casual over time, I don't necessarily think that is the wrong direction, and I do not think the game is necessarily getting worse because of it. Now, having said all that, Team 17 hasn't had the reins for very long, and they very well could do some things that I just absolutely hate, but they haven't done anything like that yet. But I am interested to hear how you feel about it, so let us know in the comments. On to your second question about breaking the ice. I usually don't do anything out of the ordinary to break the ice. If I'm squad leader, I usually wait about 30 seconds if it's, like the beginning of a match. I'll wait about 30 seconds to kind of let everybody get their preferred roles, and then I'll simply ask if everyone has a mic or not, sort of like a roll call. Then I'll ask if there's anybody, willing to go support, because I really like having a support player in my squad. And then I just kind of go from there by giving orders and letting them know what I want to do, and they just kind of weed themselves out. The players that want to talk will talk, and they'll play along, and the others who don't want to talk, that really doesn't bother me as long as they play along. And then, of course, you'll have the players that, they're just not interested in playing as part of a team. They will eventually see themselves out of the squad, usually. And we'll talk more about this in the next question, too. But if I'm not playing squad leader, if I join a lock squad and they let me in, I will thank them for letting me in. And then I'll ask if there are any roles that they need, or if the squad leader wants a specific role to be filled. If engineer's open, I'll ask if we need nodes, and then just kind of go from there, asking what the squad leader wants us to do, and ask the other players what they are seeing, and go from there. So I usually don't try to, tell jokes or be funny or anything like that. I just kind of have a calm seriousness about it, and I think it gets other people into the game and helps them understand that talking is going to help us be more effective, and in that way I feel like I can help break the ice. Thanks again for all the support and for the questions. Lixn asks, how do you feel about the moments of frustration that can be had when playing commander squad leader and people are not listening nor adhering to the plan? What's your approach? And should the game be changed in any way? I assume you mean, should the game be changed in any way to make this specific situation less possible? Another good question. I don't think there's just a whole lot you can do. I understand that frustration. It happens to me, and it's been happening more to me as time goes on. The situation that always bothers me is, and it always has to do with an AT player. You're asking for certain things to be done, and they're off chasing a tank that's 800 meters away from your location, and then a piece of armor comes up and starts harassing you, keeping you from achieving your goals, and you need an AT player, and there they are, way far away, pursuing their own personal goals. So something you can do is kick players who are not playing along. It is your squad at the end of the day, and if you're asking for certain things to be done, and they're not getting done, then you are well within your rights to kick that player. As far as my approach, my personal approach to these situations, I have never, in all the time I've been playing Hell Let Loose, I have never kicked a player out of my squad. What I will do is calmly give the order, wait a minute, calmly give the order again, wait a minute, then give the order again. And after doing this 3 or 4 times, you'll find out what kind of player you're dealing with, and they'll do one of 3 things. One, they'll voluntarily leave the squad because you're telling them to do something they don't want to do, and they don't want to be a part of the squad if they can't just do their own thing. 2 is they'll start listening to your orders, they'll start playing along, and everyone will have a really great time. Or 3, they'll just continue playing their own game and not respond to you at all. Either one of the first 2 options are your best outcomes, and 90% of the time, one of those 2 things will happen. If and when the 3rd thing happens, I simply fall back on the old adage, you play with the team you have, not the team you want. My personal advice would be to just save yourself the trouble and kick that player, but maybe you're feeling generous, and so you're just going to have to play without the capability of engaging enemy armor, at least, with the anti-tank role, if that's your situation. Now this is going to make your squad less effective. You're going to have to be a little more creative with the solutions to your problems, but that doesn't mean you stop giving them orders. Every few minutes, give updated orders. Things like, okay, let's push north from the OP, and let's engage that armor to our east. Even though they won't respond, I guarantee you that they will voluntarily leave your squad within 10 or 15 minutes. First is they're not here to play along. They're not here to hear you, giving orders, so they're going to get annoyed. And second is that your orders will basically continually remind them that they are not participating. The key here is to just stay calm the whole time. Don't get aggressive. Don't call them out necessarily specifically. And start a big fight, which can lead to toxicity in chat, lead to toxicity in the squad, and that can be really distracting. Just stay calm the whole time, keep giving your squad orders, and they'll eventually leave on their own. So that's how I do it. That's how I handle those situations. And like I said earlier, though, you can kick members out of your squad. Just try to keep in mind that sometimes kicking people and all that kind of stuff can lead to toxic behavior. Thanks for the questions. Let's do another fun one quick. ilikemoomoos asks, what is your opinion on toast? I like toast with breakfast. I prefer buttered toast, but my second favorite would be toast with grape jelly, and plain toast is fine as long as I'm eating it with eggs. Okay, all right. I wanted to do that one before we got heavy on this one. Vittoriojedi asks, what are your honest thoughts on the speed increase? What do you think is the reasoning behind it? It was too much of an increase. On top of that, there was no indication sprint speed was going to increase, nor was the community told about it beforehand. And even further on top of that, there was no longer any PTE, so that any balance issues could at least be identified before the update, let alone fixed. Now, this might be unpopular, but I do think that the old sprint speed was a little too slow. I do think sprint speed needed to be increased, just not that much, and not without any feedback from the community beforehand. Not only did the increase end up impacting some balance issues, but then just, sneaking it out on us, that it kind of felt underhanded, and I think the community felt like someone was trying to trick them. And Team 17 kind of was. I think they, deep down, I think they knew there was going to be backlash at that much of an increase. Which is why they more or less lied to us about how much of an increase there actually was. They told us it was going to be 15%, and that just doesn't seem to be the case. My own calculations put it anywhere from 23 to 25%, and you can see how I came up with that at the top right. Had they said something like, we are going to start experimenting with sprint speed, and here is, where we're starting, it would have been much better received. And from everything that I've gathered from Team 17 since this has happened, it seems like that is what they are going to do now. Start adjusting sprint speed and find better balance. But the increase was too much. They needed to not be underhanded about it, and they need to not lie about the changes they are making after they have made them. So now, why do I think they did it? First, there's kind of a misnomer going around that there was no one asking for a sprint speed increase, and that's just not the case. A lot of people wanted a speed increase. It would come up relatively frequently in YouTube video comments and on Reddit and on Steam forums, etc. It wasn't very high on my priority list, but it was pretty common feedback. Second thing I'm sure is that they wanted it to be, more like other modern shooters. Even with the increase, Hell Let Loose's sprint speed is still slower than other games in the same space, like Squad, or at least before Squad's update. Postscriptum, Arma, and I'm just assuming it's slower than games like Battlefield and Call of Duty. I don't know, but Pterodactyl actually made a video comparing these titles at the top right. Now, I don't personally think that this really matters, as Hell Let Loose is its own game and it shouldn't try to copy, sprint speed from other games just for the sake of it, but I'm sure that had some bearing on their decision making. They are also preparing for a whole new game mode, and they probably have plans for that game mode that, they have not let us in on, or at least they had plans for that game mode. Having faster sprint speeds and a smaller map would make for very intense combat akin to some other shooters on the market. Those types of high speed, high intensity matches would allow them to appeal to a different audience, or at least an expanded audience, that maybe would have passed by Hell Let Loose otherwise. Now, of course, most of the people playing Hell Let Loose right now aren't as interested in that type of game. Even if they are interested in a shorter game mode, they're still not going to want to sacrifice the integrity of the game as it is. So that's my opinion on it and why I think they did it. Great question, and great questions all around so far. Thank you very much. MeThePlanet asks, what's your opinion on the way Team 17 is going forward with the game? Are you hopeful for the future of Hell Let Loose, or are you ready to move on from the game in the case Team 17 screws things up? I am not surprised at all that Team 17 is going to focus on a smaller, shorter game mode in an attempt to try to appeal to a larger player base. Believe it or not, I even think that it's a smart play for a new development team to work on something small and then expand to larger things as time goes on, as the war, of course, expanded over the years. Other than the absolute train wreck that was the Update 15 trailer, the only two things that Team 17 has done that has really bothered me has been taking away the PTE, which they have said they are going to return, and changing the sprint speed without telling us beforehand. Yes, they had an update that wasn't so great, and there were a lot of bugs and some, server performance issues that happened, but that is nothing new to Hell Let Loose development. That has happened in literally every update that Black Matter ever dropped. So, while I don't think that Team 17 put their best foot forward, I also don't have a negative opinion of them as far as Hell Let Loose is concerned, at least not yet. We'll see how they respond to all this negative feedback and how they address our concerns. Moving on, I am hopeful for the future of Hell Let Loose. Team 17 said that this year they're going to start rolling out updates that coincide, with the year of the war. If they hold true to that, it means that we're going to have roughly 6 years of updates and content coming to Hell Let Loose in one form or another. I don't really think that Team 17 is going to screw up or ruin Hell Let Loose. I think Hell Let Loose might change a little over time. There's going to be new game modes and additions that are going to appeal to different types of players, but I don't think they're going to ruin it. But let's say they do make some changes and some decisions that I just cannot get on board with, then yes, I will absolutely eventually stop playing Hell Let Loose, especially if I'm no longer having fun, which is the ultimate goal of playing these games. As far as the channel is concerned, if Hell Let Loose were something I were to stop covering, that would probably not be good for the channel, but I don't really care. I'm not going to cover something that I don't enjoy covering, and I'm not going to make videos that I don't think provide value of some kind to somebody. So yeah, if something catastrophic were to happen, and those things were to happen, I would absolutely have no problem moving on to new or different games that I enjoy instead. What's your answer to your question? Thank you. Harrisbeck asks, as you make so many videos on tactical shooters, do you have any other genres that you play to relax instead? The amount of time that I spend playing tactical shooters like Hell Let Loose, Postscriptum, Squad has dramatically increased since I started the channel. That makes sense since, it's what I talk about and I need to be qualified to talk about those things. I will admit that there are some times where I play Hell Let Loose when I really don't feel like playing Hell Let Loose. Just because I need to get in there, I need to know what's going on, and I need to get some footage for something, etc. So most of the time I spend gaming is spent playing games I either cover or adjacent to the games I cover. Usually in the winter though, my work slows down quite a bit and I get more time to relax. So that's when I play games like Hearts of Iron that we talked about earlier. I'll play games like Jedi Fallen Order or Red Dead Redemption 2 or Kingdom Come Deliverance or some real-time strategy games like Steel Division. I also play Total War Rome 2. I'm a big fan of the Hitman series, and I played through the Mafia series. Last year I played Stray on the channel. That was a lot of fun to play. One of my favorite games I've played in the last couple of years was Samurai Jack Battle Through Time. I mean, that was like playing the cartoon. It was so cool. I also like submarine simulations like Silent Hunter 3 or U-Boat. I played through the Wolfenstein games recently, not too terribly long ago. So yeah, I like Grand Strategy 4X games. I like open world action RPG games, single player shooter games, real-time strategy games. I also like extraction shooters like Escape from Tarkov and Marauders, although those are a little more stressful than I think what you're talking about. And probably fall closer to tactical shooters than those other games anyway. But yeah, not a whole lot of time nowadays, but what about you? What games help you relax? Thanks for the question. koningA did not have a question, but then changed their mind and asked a bunch. So, what are your expectations for the Devotion to Duty update coming July 18th? Well, I'm sure you know this already, but the update has been postponed so Team 17 can focus a little more on what they've already put out. So my expectations are that they're going to put out a smaller game mode that might even be pretty fun, and it's going to attract more people and maybe even get some people who were tired of playing hour-and-a-half matches to pick the game back up. I also expect this to be the first update where we'll really start seeing what Team 17 is made of and what they're going to focus on for the future and how they're going to leave their mark on Hell Let Loose. Do you think it will attract new players? I think I pretty well answered that already. Do you think the feel of the community could change, and in what way? I think the community has already been changing over time, and the people who are going to want to play a smaller, faster game mode could potentially be less focused on things like teamwork and communication. We'll see how that game mode works once it finally, comes out, but it is possible those things could simply be less important for that type of game mode. It might have its own strategies and tactics that maybe don't translate very well to, like warfare and offensive mode. But we'll have to wait and see kind of how that all plays out. Hopefully, players coming to Hell Let Loose, if they are less interested in teamwork and communication, hopefully that doesn't translate into bringing that type of attitude into the wider community, and there's nothing that says it has to be that way. Are you personally excited to play it? Personally, I think I'm going to be more into, warfare and offensive mode just because of the larger scale of it. But I am excited to see how it works. I think we're going to learn a lot about Team 17 in the future and all that kind of stuff from it. And there will be plenty of nights where I want to pop in and I only have a half hour to play. So it will be nice to have this game mode if I don't have a lot of time, but I want to play some Hell Let Loose. Do you think Hell Let Loose needs reinvigoration? I think need is a strong word, but it's probably not too far off. It could sure benefit from it. I think that, that Team 17 taking over and bringing us a new game mode will ultimately be a good thing in the long run for Hell Let Loose as a title. Do you find it hard to not be cynical about future content? No, I am not very cynical about future content. I kind of know how this goes, whether it's Black Matter or with Team 17, and I'm fully capable of coming up with my own opinions even after, consuming some of that other content that is extremely negative right now. There is a large portion of that is extremely justified, and then there is a large chunk of it, I'm kind of wondering where it was for update 12 and 13 that were dropped by Black Matter, and those updates were complete disasters. So I can understand all this negative content having a larger effect on people who maybe don't follow this whole thing as closely as someone like I do, and maybe you. So maybe it's harder for the larger community to not be so cynical right now, but me personally, I'm fine. What do you think of the trailer? I assume you're talking about the train wreck that was the Update 15 trailer, and That's exactly what that was. It was an absolute train wreck. It should have never been made. It simply was not ready. I don't know if they just, pushed it out because they wanted to make that particular gaming show, or I don't know what the deal was. I don't even care at this point. I want everyone to have learned from it, and I want that to never happen again. Not only for Hell Let Loose, but for the entirety of the gaming industry forever. That was just awful. What would you consider the major upsides of shorter/smaller play sessions? I think the biggest benefit would be just simply, the time factor. If you have a limited amount of time, now you can play one, maybe even 2 games instead of getting into a big warfare mode match and then having to leave before it's over. Do you have nostalgia for games like Medal of Honor, Allied Assault multiplayer? I did not play the multiplayer part of that game. I don't know if I have nostalgia for some of those older multiplayer games, but I do like them. I did enjoy playing some of those older games. Aside from the small game mode plus maps, what are you hoping is inside Devotion to Duty update? What I'm hoping happens is that they get everything ironed out from update 14 before they drop update 15. So I'm hoping we get at least one more patch for update 14. Then, honestly, all I really want them to put out in update 15 is the new game mode and the things that go with it. I don't want them to, try to be everything to everyone. Just put out your new game mode and make sure it works very well. I am interested to see how they're going to handle how spawning works in the new game mode, and I am interested to see the new commander orders or the unique commander orders that they plan on implementing with it. Okay, I think I'm going to need a lawyer next time for the next AMA. Thanks for the question, and thanks for sticking with me all this time, koningA. So here's another name that I'm sorry, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong. Please forgive me, but edmundojosezuazuachapa asks, what map would you like to see in Hell Let Loose? Good question. Part of me wants to see a truly urban Stalingrad, like, a Stalingrad that the map is just almost all urban. I think that would lead to some really crazy fighting, but the map I really want to see is Caen. You just never see that map in games, or at least in games that I've played, and it was a really big part of the culmination of the Battle of Normandy. Plus it's a map where the British and Canadians were involved, which would go hand in hand with the recent release of the British forces. I'll put the link to that, the wiki to that battle down in the description in case anybody wants to learn more about it. It was pretty intense, and it left that city in a almost completely ruined state. So that's what I want to see. What about you? Thanks for the question. The Hound asks, if you could fire any gun from Hell Let Loose in real life, which would it be? I would like to fire and own a M1911. So I do not own any World War II era firearms as of right now, but my father does. He owns a M1 Garand, and a few years ago for his birthday, I bought him a M1911A1 that was manufactured in 1943, the same year he was born. I have shot both of these weapons, and they are both super fun. Before I first shot the M1 Garand, I thought, at first it was going to have bad sight picture. I thought recoil was going to be really hard to manage, and I thought that it was going to be really hard to get a good grouping if I were to fire fast. Well, I could not have been more wrong. The picture was surprisingly clear, and it's really easy to pick up your targets, and there is a little bit of recoil, but it's such a heavy weapon, and the bolt, it's a big heavy bolt, and yeah, it does slam back, but it also flings itself forward, so recoil is actually pretty manageable, and it was surprisingly easy to get a good grouping. The first time I fired, I emptied the whole clip as fast as I could while still keeping, control of the weapon, which was still really fast because it's easy to control. I had a really good grouping, and that was the first time ever firing the rifle, so that is just a fantastic rifle. The 1911, on the other hand, is it's a whole lot of fun to shoot, and you're holding a piece of history in your hand, so that's super cool. but I could not hit anything with it. I was extremely inaccurate with it, and I wasn't firing fast or anything like that. I was just shooting nice and slow, controlled, one shot at a time, and I was just very inaccurate with it. A lot of fun to shoot, but, you know, like they say, I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. So anyway, I'd really love to shoot almost every weapon from that era just to say that, I have had that experience. But I would have to say, if I only had one, absolutely one weapon that I could shoot from that time, it would be the MG42. Just that simple, extreme rate of fire must just feel awesome. And it has to be, just a one-of-a-kind experience. So that's my pick. Thanks for the question. RichardMailhot asks, what class do you main in Hell Let Loose? So my favorite role to play most of the time is the MG class for many of the same reasons that I just got done mentioning in the question before. It's just so much fun to lay down, that amount of firepower. However, it's hard to say what class I quote-unquote main, but I would say I spend most of my time playing squad leader or support. I think squad leader is probably the single most important role in the entire game. They're all important in their own way, but squad leader probably has the most burden to bear, and playing squad leader gives you a lot of control over how the game is going to play out. I also think support is extremely important, and I think it's fun to play too, but you have your supplies, which obviously are very important on any Hell Let Loose battlefield, but you also get your explosive ammo, which is really important to help take out armor and things like that, and grenades are important. And that's all in addition to the fact that the support player, they can kind of be like the squad leader's right-hand man, and I like having that kind of influence within the squad. How about you? What do you main? Thanks for the question. Benward asks, why do you think they haven't moved to Hell Let Loose 2 using Unreal Engine 5? Really good question. So I think, doing that makes the most sense to people like me and you who aren't actively developing games and trying to make money through that type of industry, right? Hell Let Loose is kind of a mess underneath the hood, and there's always been a lot of issues whenever there's an update. Doesn't matter who's the development team, and because of that, it kind of makes sense to me anyway, let's just wash our hands of all this, make a brand new game that works very well on Unreal Engine 5. It's going to look fantastic. It's going to sell like crazy. When it finally comes out, just seems like a no-brainer, right? Well, I think the simplest answer is just that they bought the game for a fair chunk of money, and they're going to want to make some of that money back. And Hell Let Loose is, it's not like it's a really old game, and there's more to do with what is already there. And they can do that quicker than they can develop a whole brand new game. More than likely here pretty soon they're going to introduce a whole new game mode, which will probably attract new players. It's probably going to get some older players back too. So they're probably going to make a little bit of money back that way, and then they're going to be able to do that a lot faster than if they would have spent, 3 years developing a whole new game. Like I said earlier, their plan is to go through every year of the war. So, they're starting in 1939, like this year, and next year we're going to get 1940, which means we're probably going to see the French forces, and it's probably a lot easier just to introduce a few new weapons and stuff and a few new cosmetics. You already have a lot of the assets for the French countryside, You already have all the locomotion stuff down, or at least mostly down. You don't have to do macro scale designing of a game and how all that, math is going to work. And that stuff's already done. I would have loved to hear Team 17 say that they were going to begin developing a whole new Hell Let Loose, when they acquired the IP on the Unreal Engine 5. But I knew it was a long shot, and I wasn't going to hold my breath. Now, is Team 17 going to be able to, keep developing this game for 6 more years and get life out of it for 6 more years? We will see, but they do own the IP, so if Hell Let Loose, the way it is right now, if that ends up dying in a couple years, they are going to hold on to that OP, and sometime in the future, you know, we probably will get a new Hell Let Loose on a different engine. So what do you think? Thanks again for the question. Swisshost, who has been a longtime supporter of the channel, they ask, how many work hours do you put into a single video, from recording to uploading? That really depends on the type of video. So if we're not counting like game time, like if I play a match, you know, and record it and get footage out of that, and I'm just, you know, I'm not going to count that. So most of my videos, they start out as an outline. I usually write an outline on my phone. From that point, it depends on what I'm actually writing about, but usually the scripting and the recording of footage, they go kind of hand in hand. I will gather the information I need from the game while I record it, and then I will, you know, script it, you know, kind of back and forth. Or, you know, I will continue to work on the script while reviewing that recorded footage later. If it's a really short video, like a YouTube short or a TikTok, sometimes those can go really quick if I'm just cutting, you know, like a single piece of footage and there's not any scripting or anything going on, and it's just like a minute long or whatever. Those can take hour and a half. If it's a short or a TikTok that I'm actually trying to like teach somebody something, like, you know, with the Did You Know series, I'd say those can take anywhere from 2 to 5 hours, depending on how much, you know, how well scripting goes. Sometimes I have to edit information out, you know, trying to keep that under a minute. It also depends on how many different video clips I have to put in those shorts and TikToks. So the full form videos, it really does vary, but it's definitely not a quick process. I'd say it depends on the topic, but anywhere from 8 to 10 hours all the way up to, I know there's been a couple comparison videos that I've worked on for 16 hours straight in one day, and that wasn't even like all of the work that went into that video. I'd say the longest I've ever worked on a single video might be close to 30 hours. Now, of course, it has gotten better since I have my own server now where I can set things up without interference from other people, and I get the maps that I want. But yeah, it can take a really long time, and you know, I don't have a whole lot of time, which is why it takes me so long to get videos out sometimes. I have to break up my, you know, I can't just sit down and like make a video in a day or two. I really have to spread work out over multiple days, or sometimes even, you know, multiple weeks. That can get kind of frustrating, especially with the news and things surrounding Hell Let Loose. You know, sometimes that moves pretty quickly, and I'll have a couple videos that are halfway made, and then all of a sudden they'll announce something, and you know, I have to put those on hold as I gotta cover like maybe a new update or something. And sometimes I even take time off of work just to get those update videos out. The two things that seem to take the longest, I think, is writing out the script and not necessarily editing video, although sometimes that can take a long time, but editing audio. I'm not a voice actor. I often have to do multiple takes to get certain things, you know, sounding the way I want them to sound. And then I have to edit out my pauses and some of my deep breaths and things like that. You know, sometimes I get kind of envious of some of the other Hell Let Loose content creators, you know, the ones that'll like give you a couple minutes of audio at the beginning and then it's just gameplay footage afterwards. It must be kind of nice to make those videos, not a whole lot of scripting going on. But I always feel like those videos are just leaving a lot of information on the cutting room floor, which is why I don't do that, or at least don't do it very often. But I will say that even those videos are going to take a fair amount of time and effort. But to answer your question more succinctly, I'd say long form videos for me take anywhere from, we'll say 10 to 20 hours on average. Let's just say that the paychecks don't add up to the time invested. Perfect time to say hit that join button and become a channel member to help support Gebatron Gaming. Thanks for the question and for all your support over time, Swisshost. And finally, Nathator wants a video of me saying, "That's right," on loop from the Did You Know series. So here you go. Did you know that you gain plus 30 in support effectiveness score for every minute spent in the driver's seat of certain vehicles? That's right. 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 So that's all the questions. Thank you so much for helping me celebrate breaking the 6,000 subscriber mark. Everyone who asked me a question and was featured in this video was also entered to win Steam keys. I'll announce those winners here in a moment, but this is how you'll collect your key. Once you see or hear you are a winner, simply send me an email at gebatrongaming@gmail.com with your YouTube username and a copy-paste of your original AMA question or comment, and we will go from there. I'll also reply to your original comment telling you that you've won, just in case some winners don't see this video. So without further ado, here are the Steam key winners. The Hell Let Loose keys go to Swisshost, Vittorio, MeThePlanet, pnklysmooth, and tedvanosch. Skull Bucket DLC keys go to knowledgeofbarbarossa, mstrstrawxx, richardmailhot, enricotrevelino, and edmundojosezuazuachapa. The Beach Invasion 1944 keys go to Lixn, Just a Veteran, and Harrisbeck. So that's that. Congratulations to all the winners, and to the people who didn't win, better luck next time, and there will be a next time, so make sure to turn on notifications so you don't miss the next giveaway. Thanks again for helping Gebatron Gaming grow. Thank you for helping me break the 6,000 subscriber mark. Thanks for celebrating with me. I hope you enjoyed the video and continue to support the channel in the future. As always, thank you, and see you in the next one.